Where attention goes, energy flows. Attention is the fuel that propels intention into manifestation. Welcome to Here Nor There. This channel is dedicated to the law of assumption and conscious creation and learning to control your mind in order to experience the reality that you desire. So, we're on the topic of our attention span. As I said in the opening quote, wherever you're diverting your concentration, that is where the energy is flowing. First, let's discuss the difference between giving attention versus paying attention. Very subtle difference here, but giving attention is essentially when you have multiple tasks and your attention is spread out between those tasks. Paying attention, which does sound like a more important word, right? Paying attention involves solely focusing on one specific task. In this case, one specific thought, one specific outcome. So, what are you paying attention to? Are you paying attention to a reality that you do not want to experience? Or are you paying attention to a reality that you do want to experience? The first thing we have to ask is, what do you want? What do you want? Most of us that have stumbled or walked or strayed into the law of assumption, we have all came here because of love. Let's be honest. Whether you're trying to get your ex back, whether you're trying to find the love of your life, we all have stumbled across, most of us at least, have stumbled across this way of thinking in order to win back the love of their life or to walk into the relationship of their life. So, as we're doing so, what are you focusing on? What are you paying attention to? Are you paying attention to a reality where your person is not in your life? Are you paying attention to a reality where your SP is not texting you back? Are you paying attention to a reality where you just do not have what you want? On the other hand, if you shift that thinking, if you pay attention to what you do want to experience, if you pay attention to the feelings that you actually do want to feel in reality, it has to manifest, just like the negative things. So the trick is to shift your attention to what you do want to experience and shift your attention away from the circumstances that you don't want to experience. It does sound simple. It sounds very simple. And of course, in practice, it's difficult, right? But nevertheless, with repetition, things become easier. So how do we do this? We do this through our imagination. A quick story. I grew up pretty athletic, right? And I was an avid fan of the NBA basketball. I grew up watching all of the greats, Michael Jordan, Anthony Hardaway, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant. And I was actually a basketball player myself at one point in my life. And as I learned to play when I was 11, 12 years old, all the way up until I was 18 years old, I would always practice this one shot. At the end of my practice sessions, whether it was practicing with the team or practicing in my parents' backyard, I would always do a buzzer beater type play where I would count down and I would go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lob the shot in the air, and I would just keep going until that shot actually went in. And when it did go in, I would make the fake crowd noises and the whole nine. So I would always end my practices with this. Lo and behold, years later, in one of my final games playing on my basketball team in high school, my coach put me in the game. So here I come into the game, ready. I score. I'm getting real hype. I feel really good. The clock is ticking down. We're about to reach a scoring milestone that no team at this high school had actually accomplished in several years. So I get the ball. The shot clock is counting down. A couple of defenders are headed my way in order to stop me. I lob the ball up in the air. I gently fall down to the ground. I see the ball floating in the air. It hits the backboard and goes straight through the net. The buzzer goes off. The crowd goes wild. My teammates run onto the court, pick me up, celebrating, and it's one of the best moments of my life. But it took me years until I stumbled across the teachings of Neville Goddard to realize that I had visualized that outcome. I had visualized how it felt to score the final shot in a game. And it actually happened in fruition years later. So What am I getting at here? As children, we all learned how to pretend. We all pretended that we were something that we were not yet. I pretended that I made this shot years before I was on anybody's basketball team. You may have pretended that you met the love of your life and got married years before you met your person. So it's the power of the imagination that harnesses this gift of creating the reality that we want to experience. Too many times we use our imagination to focus on what we don't want to experience. We use our imagination to focus on the past, or we use our imagination to be very anxious about the future. So what's the answer here? As children, we learn how to pretend and we learn how to visualize the experiences that we wanted to have. Somewhere along in adulthood, most of us forgot that. In his book, At Your Command, Neville states, "You cannot serve two masters. Therefore, to take your attention from one state of consciousness and place it upon another is to die to one and live to the other." This is a very profound quote, and one quote that I had to read several times to really understand, because later on in the text, Neville describes what two masters are. These two masters are two different states of consciousness: the state of having what you want and the state of not having what you want. So when we shift our attention away from what we don't want to experience and we place it upon what we do, that is how we manifest the reality that we want to experience. Let's take being happily married, for instance. You cannot focus on a state of consciousness where you are happily married while you are upset and distressed about being miserably single. You get to that state of consciousness by focusing on that. What would this married person do? How would this married person feel? What would they be focusing on? So we can apply this to several different areas. We could focus on the person that is in the state of consciousness of a happily married person, that person that has their specific person, that person that has the love of their life, that has their crush. We could shift this to work and business. The person that has the dream job, the dream career, the person that has the dream home, the dream car. This is why imagination is important. Everything was a thought first. The smartphone that you're holding, your computer, your car, everything was a thought before it manifested into reality. This is not only exclusive to devices and material objects, this is also a very profound way of thinking that people have imagined that their movie careers or the businesses that they started up, or even marrying the person of their dreams, where they all visualized these things before they actually occurred. And they started to shift their attention to what they wanted to experience and not what they did not want to experience. They focused on the outcome that they wanted to experience. That is the key. Paying attention to your attention is the key. So since I discovered the law of assumption, since I've been involved in the community, I always noticed that there's one common denominator amongst people who are trying to create a certain reality. And those that may fall short, I typically see that there's one common denominator, and that is failing to set a goal. So the first step is you have to decide what you want. Is it to be happily married? Is it to be in the job that you wanted, the job of your dreams? Is it to have that $1 million home? First, make a decision. That's typically the part that kind of sways people there. Make a decision. Once you decide, once you make that decision, you focus on having that thing. You start to align your choices in life that are following that path. Whenever you plant a seed, it has an appointed time to where that seed is going to harvest into a plant, into a flower, into a fruit. It already has that appointed time. So keeping that analogy fresh in your mind about plants. Just as a branch withers and dies if the sap of the vine ceases to flow towards it, so do things and qualities pass away if you take your attention from them, because your attention is the sap of life which sustains the expression of your life. So what does this mean? It means you need to make decisions that are based on the outcome that you want to experience. If you focus your attention on that specific outcome and you take away your attention from the outcome you do not want to experience, that outcome has to wither and die. It cannot exist if your attention is not on it. And similar to the plant analogy, when we plant a seed, for a flower, for a plant, for a vegetable, we plant that seed and we do not disturb it. We water it, we cultivate it, but we don't go and we don't dig up the soil every other day to check to see if it has roots. We do not interfere. We've already planted the seed. We've already set the goal. And now we just water it. And how do we water it? We visualize. How do we water the reality that we want to experience? How do we cultivate that? We constantly visualize about it. We think about it in positive ways. We shift our attention to what we do want to experience in that reality. And as long as we shift our attention there and primarily keep it there, listen, we don't have to be perfect. No human being is perfect. Our attention will divert here and there, but it's very important to bring it back and focus on what you actually do want to experience. So in conclusion, how do we make it make sense? You rise to a higher level of consciousness by taking your attention away from your present limitations and placing it upon that which you desire to be. It's just simple as that. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's hard to do, especially if you're a novice. It takes time to become a master at something. So please, above all, be patient with yourself. But if you learn to shift your state of consciousness away from things that you do not want to experience and shift them towards the things that you do want to experience, the law will work in your favor. It works that way for the negative things, and it works that way for the positive things. The universe at will, the Almighty, doesn't have feelings about either way. It wants what you want. Let's think of it like that. The universe at large, this reality that we are creating, it wants what you want. So if you shift your attention towards a state of not having your specific person, if you shift your attention to a state of not having the job, the car, the house that you want, that is what you will experience. But here's the wonderful thing. It works that way on the opposite spectrum. If you focus on having that SP, if you focus on having that job, having that car, having that vacation, having those experiences, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Neville, in all of his writings, he didn't say anything about perfection. The key is consistency. The key is repetition. What you focus on more, when you divert that energy down that path, that is the path that you will walk. So I like to give my favorite thing to love and hate is social media. Social media has connected us like no other human civilization in any other era of existence has been connected. At any given time, we can check in on somebody's life. I will do another video on that because really you're just checking in on the highlights of people's life, you know? But that's neither here nor there. But what I'm getting at here is, let's use social media for example. Let's say you just recently lost your SP. Let's say that you're a beautiful young lady and you had a disconnect with your SP and now he doesn't want to be with you anymore. He says that, oh, you're not the person for me. I'm going to be single. I'm going to do hot boy summer. I'm going to just do whatever I want to do. It breaks your heart. But let's say you stumble into the law of assumption. You stumble into Neville's readings where we're talking about shifting your state of consciousness. You have to ask yourself, you have to be accountable. Are you focused on a reality where this person is not with you? Are you focused on a reality where they don't love you? Are you focused on a reality where they won't text you back? Are you focused on a reality where they're with somebody else? Let's just say, for example, you're still Instagram friends. Are you checking the Instagram? Are you checking the Facebooks, the MySpaces? I don't think that even exists anymore. Are you checking those things? And you have to ask yourself, is that the state of consciousness of somebody that has what they want? If you were with that person, would you be checking to see if they're with somebody else? Would you be checking to see if they're having fun without you? You are aligning yourself with a state of consciousness of not having your person. Let's say your SP is in your life and they're just not acting the way you want them to act. Are you giving more attention to that? Are you complaining to your friends? Are you complaining hours on end to anybody who will listen? Are you getting on Facebook groups? Are you getting on Instagram comments? Are you calling up your friends and complaining about this state of consciousness that you don't want to experience? You are literally giving attention to it more and more and more and more. And as I stated before, as Neville wrote before, to get rid of that, you shift your attention to what you do want to experience. So instead, you turn your attention away from that. You let that branch wither and die. You bring yourself over here to this state of consciousness to where you have what you want. And this takes imagination. Just as I described my personal story about me having hoop dreams when I was a young boy, we apply that same level of imagination, that same level of pretending. That in and of itself is conscious creation. And we imagine what we do want to experience. We imagine ourselves with that person. Let's just say the person is in your life and you have to deal with them on an everyday basis. We don't complain. Yes, it's okay to vent. Again, you don't have to be perfect. But once you vent, get off that horse, get back on the trail to what you want. Focus on what you want. Visualize what you want and ignore what you don't. You have to let that die. You cannot serve two masters. And once you learn to do this, again, be patient with yourself. Through repetition, it comes with ease. But once you learn to do this, this is how you create the reality you want to experience. This is how you create that loving relationship. This is how you create that wonderful career, that dream vacation, even having a healthy body, sound mind. All of these things are within our reach if we just learn to cultivate what's between these two ears. So with that being said, we have arrived at the end of our first video. Thank you. Again, let me extend my gratitude. Thank you for giving me your attention and your time to hear my thoughts and to hear what I have to say about the late, great Neville Goddard. And on this channel, we will be exploring many different new thought creators. And this whole experience, this whole walk that you're taking with me, this journey, is about creating the reality that you want to experience, creating heaven on earth. And I am grateful to be sharing this journey with you. So again, I am Shaun, and you are neither here nor there. Thank you for joining me.